U.S., Japan to cooperate on semiconductors as a part of new financial dialogue. Washington. The United States and Japan released a brand new high-level monetary talk on Friday aimed at pushing back towards China and countering the disruption due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The longtime allies agreed to establish a new joint research center for next-generation semiconductors for the duration of the so-called Monetary 2+2 Ministerial Assembly in Washington, Japanese Trade Minister Koichi Hagiuda stated. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi and Hagiuda additionally mentioned electricity and food safety, the officers said in a news briefing. As the sector's first and third largest economies, it's miles crucial that we work together to protect the rules-based financial order, one in which all countries can participate, compete and prosper, Blinken advised the opening consultation. Blinken stated latest international occasions, such as the COVID-19 pandemic and battle in Ukraine, had shown the vulnerability of vital delivery chains, even as a developing variety of nations were struggling with debt burdens due to unsustainable and non-transparent lending practices. The coercive and retaliatory economic practices of the People's Republic of China force nations into selections that compromise their security, their highbrow assets, their economic independence, he mentioned. Japan's Hayashi referred to as Russia's invasion of Ukraine a severe challenge to the global order and in an obvious connection with China, although he did no longer call it directly stated attempts to apply monetary influence unfairly and opaquely to realize strategic interests and to modify the prevailing global order. Semiconductors. Hagiuda stated, Japan will fast flow to action on next-generation semiconductor research and mentioned Washington and Tokyo had agreed to launch a new R&D agency to set up a steady source of the critical components. The studies hub could be open for different, like-minded, countries to take part in, he mentioned. The international locations did no longer right away launch additional details of the plan, but Japan's Nikkei Shimbun newspaper earlier said it'd be installation in Japan via the stop of this year to analyze 2-nanometer semiconductor chips. It will consist of a prototype production line and must begin generating semiconductors with the aid of 2025, the newspaper stated. As we mentioned these days, semiconductors are the linchpin of our financial and countrywide protection, mentioned Raimondo, adding that the officials had mentioned collaboration on semiconductors, specifically with respect to superior semiconductors. Taiwan now makes the considerable majority of semiconductors beneath 10 nanometers, which can be utilized in products which include clever phones, and there is situation about the stableness of supply ought to problem arise regarding Taiwan and China, which views the island as a renegade province. The United States and Japan mentioned in a joint statement they could paintings together, to foster deliver chain resilience in strategic sectors, together with, especially, semiconductors, batteries, and crucial minerals. They vowed to construct a strong battery deliver chain to guide collaboration among like-minded nations. On ties with Russia, Hagiuda mentioned he received U.S. know-how about Japan's aim to preserve its stake within the Sakhalin-2 oil and gas project regardless of sanctions towards Moscow through Washington, Tokyo and others following the Ukraine invasion. There are voices calling for withdrawal. But it'd imply our stake is going to a third U.S. and Russia earns and sizable earnings. We defined how preserving our stake is consistent with sanctions, and I consider we won U.S. understanding, he mentioned. Japanese buying and selling houses Mitsui & Company and Mitsubishi Corp. Preserve a mixed 22.5% stake inside the project. Friday's meeting got here at a time of heightened tensions over Taiwan. On Thursday, Chinese Chief Xi Jinping warned in a name with U.S. President Joe Biden towards gambling with fireplace over Taiwan, highlighting Beijing's issues approximately a probable visit to the Chinese-claimed island through U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The U.S. House handed sweeping regulation on Thursday to subsidize the home semiconductor enterprise because it competes with Chinese and different foreign manufacturers.